Hello, hello, my friend. Welcome back to this week's episode on the Happiness Happens podcast. I am really grateful for today's guest. You are going to leave this conversation feeling very inspired, I think, and with a whole new perspective on how we can reframe healing and how we can reframe the thoughts that come across our mind and how we take those thoughts and implement them into our day-to-day life. So I want to acknowledge that this episode is running during National Suicide Prevention Week, which I think is really important and timely to highlight in this conversation because we do talk about topics of suicide. So if this conversation is going to be a little bit sensitive for you, or maybe you have little ears around you and you can't quite listen at the moment, definitely take a pause and come back to this conversation when you are able to. But I know you're going to gain so much from our conversation today. So I'm really excited to introduce you to Sean. Let me tell you a little bit about him before we get into our conversation. Sean is a U.S. Air Force veteran, TEDx speaker, master resilience implementer, and suicide awareness trainer. He's also a business positioning strategist, international podcast host of Create, Launch, Monetize podcast, and best-selling author. He's a suicide survivor who hit rock bottom, and he believes that you were created for a purpose, and that once you unlock that true potential, you will elevate your life, which is why he founded the Success Core. Sean works with entrepreneurs, speakers, and business owners to improve their positioning in the market, increasing profitability while decreasing anxiety and stress so that their business thrives. Again, I really enjoyed this conversation with Sean, and I think you're going to enjoy it as well. Be sure to hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening. Leave us a rating and review of the show. I want to hear how much you're loving these conversations. It means so much to me. And if you enjoy this conversation and you want to share it on social media, you can tag both of us. Our handles are in the show notes below. So thank you for being here for this conversation. Now, why don't we get into it? Sean, welcome to the Happiness Happens podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Super pumped to be here.
I'm really excited to have you here today. And we're going to have a really interesting conversation that, to be honest with you, I was thinking about this conversation and I wasn't entirely sure of where I wanted it to go or how it's going to go. For my listener, they know that I don't really prep questions in advance or anything like that. And so I just kind of fly by the seat of my pants and see what kind of comes up during our conversation. But I always start with one question to set the tone of every episode. And it's, what does happiness mean to you?
Happiness means when you just smile, something, a smell, a memory, something reminds you of a happy time or a happy place. And you're always going to have stress. You're always going to have worry. You're always going to have fear. It's always going to be there. But when you can go to a happy place because of a smell, a picture, a moment, a memory, something takes you to this happy moment where for that split second, you don't worry, you don't fear, you don't doubt. That's happiness, where you're just in a state of gratitude and your heart is full. That's happiness.
I love that answer. That's beautiful. And I want to ask you on the flip side of this. So this is a beautiful definition of happiness. And then my mind automatically goes to, well, what if you don't know how to do that? What if you don't know how to remember those positive memories? What if you don't have a smell that reminds you of anything, that reminds you of your grandma or your wife or whatever? What if you don't have that? How do you start to do that? Because, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but I was saying a little bit in the intro of this episode, but you have a long history of, I don't even know how to word it because your journey's been so just so all over the map in a good way. But you've been in some really dark places. And because you've been in all these dark places, I feel like you've created and developed and learned all of these different tools to help yourself bring yourself out of that spot. But there's a lot of people who don't know how to do that. And there's a lot of people who get stuck in that spot. So how do you even begin to make a shift in your life if you don't even know where to begin, where to start with that?
You always start by hunting the good stuff. Get into a mindset where what's great about this? Always but what's great about this? You could say something like, man, I lost that one client, but what's great about this? I am no longer friends with this person, but what's great about this? Like every negative that happens in your life, I lost money, I lost a friend, I got in a car accident, I have to move, my job let me go, I got laid off, or I got fired, like whatever negative happens, I broke my leg. Literally, you can combat every single negative thought with what's great about this, because there's always a positive. Always. There's always a positive in every single situation. And so you start off with, I'm really feeling bad, and this is what I feel bad about. I got in a fight with my significant other. I'm not fulfilled in my job. I'm not fulfilled in my relationship. But you know what? What's great about this? What's great about that bad thing? And then you build on that. That's your starting point. This is a situation I'm in. It sucks, but what's great about this?
That's a really good question. And I'm sitting here because I'm like, I just feel like I'm in such a time in my life right now where I'm like, I don't want to. I don't want to think about what's great about this. Like, I don't want to try and find that joy. Like, I don't want to. Like, I want to sit in my sorrow and anger and sadness and pain and all of the above. So would you say that that's okay? Because I feel like we need to honor all the emotions that we feel as well. But I feel like it's also a really slippery slope to getting to a spot where you don't want to be. And like the theme of this conversation today, so you talk a lot about suicide awareness, and it happens to be National Suicide Awareness Week. I think that's what it's called this week as this episode drops. So I'm thinking to myself, like, what is that small scale? Like, I was talking to a friend the other day who just came out of 3 weeks in like a mental rehab institution, whatever you want to call it. And it's like, it is those dark thoughts that go one after the other. And it's like, you have to catch yourself. But like, how do you catch yourself when you A, don't want to, B, feel like you're better off without, and then C, you just don't want to, like me. Which is like such a complex too, because I'm like laughing about it as I'm saying it, but I also bring humor into things because that's how I cope with things. So like for my listener right now, like I'm not trying to just like skirt over a really heavy topic. It's just that I feel like sometimes you have awareness and you know what you want to do and where you want to be. You don't really know how to get there. And you also don't want to help yourself. So it's just kind of like my grandma has this saying. She always says, you better laugh, otherwise you'll cry. She's also very Italian. So you have to picture it with like a very Italian thick accent, obviously.
Right.
So I find like that's what I do. Like that's how I cope and that's how I personally get through things. But there's a lot of people who like are not like that and who are just like, well, fuck this. I'm done.
So I'd like to counter with, what do you think that's going to do for you? You sitting in this negative state, you sitting in this emotional state of,
are we
my
turning
life
this
sucks.
into a coaching?
I don't know what to do.
Over here?
But I mean, you got to, so think about it. Like, what is that going to do? I know not every situation is going to be happy. And I think it is healthy to acknowledge that I'm not okay. I think it's healthy to accept that you're not okay. I don't think it's healthy for you to stay in that same state. There's actually a great research study done on this. So Barbara Fredrickson is a North Carolina college professor, researcher. And in 2003, she created this model, this research study called the broaden and build theory. And you can look it up. It's really great positive psychology research. And it basically says that every positive thought builds on itself and broadens your happiness, your positivity, your gratitude. And likewise, every negative thought builds on itself and drowns out the positivity and negativity. So think about it as like a tornado. If you're going up, it's a stepping stone, and every next one and next one and next one and next one, and you're broadening that positivity. Same thing, negative. Once you hit one negative thing, then it's deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into depression. And then you broaden that feeling and it becomes you. So Tony Robbins always says, where focus goes, energy flows. And what you focus on expands. So if you want to sit there and focus on every single negative thing, that's all you're going to see. If you want to buy a new car and you love this car, and you're like, nobody has this car, I'm going to get this car, nobody has it. And then you buy it, guess what? Now you see it everywhere because you weren't focusing on the fact that you had the car or they didn't have the car or whatever. But now you see it everywhere. You see the car everywhere. You're like, dang, I didn't think anybody had that car. Well, you're focusing on that particular thing, and now you see it everywhere. It's the same thing with positivity. It's the same thing with happiness. If you train your mind to say, what's great about this? If you train your mind to really focus on the positives in every single situation, you can't help but move from the state of mad, sad, angry, lonely, depressed, suicidal to a state of happy, positive. Acceptance is huge. Accepting yourself, accepting of the situation, accepting of the outcomes, because sometimes you can't change the outcome and you have to be okay with that. So sitting in this state and just wanting to wallow in self-sorrow or self-pity or wanting to feel that negative, that hurt, that pain, that sadness, that's okay for like a moment, but to live in it, like that's not good. It's like sitting there burning yourself with cigarettes. Like, you know, it hurts, but you keep doing it. So don't do it. Like, don't hurt yourself, right? You have to like do something to move you from a negative state to a positive state, because you just can't live in the negative state. That part's not healthy. You know, there's something better on the other side of that. Accept it, acknowledge it, feel it, and then move on. Because you cannot ever let your past experiences dictate your present or your future. And most of that self-pity and most of that self-wallow comes from past experiences and patterns. We will always do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome, because that's what we've always done. So you have to break the pattern, and you break the pattern with gratitude and happiness. But don't ever let your past experiences dictate your present or your future, because then you'll never grow. You'll just stay in the same state the whole time. You'll never grow. You think you will, but you're not.
Okay, fair. And there's also sometimes a lot of like guilt that comes with that, and then shame, and then fear, and then all of these different emotions, all of these different things. But I think sometimes those can be stories that we make up in our mind. Then there's this other piece too, something that you tell me often is like confirmation bias. Like, where are you looking for? You word it better than me.
So your confirmation bias is you're looking for evidence to prove that you're right about how you feel. You're looking for other validation to say, you know what? I am this person. I feel like this person, and therefore I'm going to find validation from somewhere or something, and I'm going to prove myself right, because we want to feel a certain way or whatever. So your confirmation bias is, and I always ask, like, what evidence do you have to support that? I'm a horrible person. Why? Why are you a horrible person? What evidence do you have to support this? Why are you having these thoughts? I feel guilty. I feel shameful. I feel bad. I feel like a horrible person. Why do you feel that way? What evidence do you have to prove that you are this nasty person that you think that you are? I can't be loved. Nobody likes me. I'm bad at my job. I will never be a millionaire. Why? What makes you feel this way? What evidence do you have to support the thoughts and feelings that you're having? Because thoughts, feelings, and beliefs drive all reactions and all decisions. Every thought and every action that we take is based off of our thought, feeling, and belief about the situation. So if you want to live a better life, you want to have better situations, you want to have better decisions, change your mindset. Change your mindset to a more positive one by acknowledging and accepting those negative thoughts, and then actively working to change them by asking yourself, what's great about this? Because your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs drive all reactions to every situation and all decisions you make during and after that situation.
I love that. Okay, so I want to caveat though too and say, we're having this conversation today from a perspective of both of us have done a lot of work on ourselves. Both of us have, gone to multiple types of therapy, like done all the kinds of things. Like, we've both done a lot of work on ourselves. So it's very easy to sit here and say, I'm feeling really shitty about this one particular thing, but like I know it's going to pass, but I'm still going to sit in it. I'm choosing to sit in it because that's a choice, and all of the above, right? But it's a very, very different thing for someone who does not have that same awareness, who does not have the same tools, who does not have the same mindset or belief, or like belief in their own healing and also belief in themselves. So I want you to like take us back a little bit to when you found yourself in that spot. Like, what did you do? Because there was a part of your life where you felt like it was not possible to continue on anymore. And that's a big, big, big shift from where you are today. which I think is incredible. So good for you. And also, it's not an easy thing to do. And it's not always just, choose a happier thought, because there's way more that goes along to that,
It wasn't me. I was emotionally incapable of making decisions that would have bettered my life. I was such in a cloud or a storm. Like I was literally in the dark night of my soul, and I saw no way out. And I didn't have these skills. This is 2008. I didn't even learn these skills until 2014, 2015. I had no idea.
Oh, wow.
And, I spent 20 years in the military, and we're resilient. We're taught resilience, but practicing it in these moments is hard because you don't see a way out. The only way that you see out is to end your life. And that's where I was. I saw no way out. I was losing my military career. I lost my business. I got bought out. And then I was losing my marriage. And then, so the kids are gone, she's gone, and I'm left to my own devices. I can't stop drinking. And I'm trying to will myself to like wake up in the morning and like get dressed in the military. I'm trying to have motivation, but like there is none. I don't see a way.
Yeah.
And everybody who's Christian will say, well, when you don't see a way, God will make a way. And like, cool. But me and God were not on speaking terms at that time. We were not in a relationship. Him and I were not friends. And so I would get home from work and I would just pop a bottle of Jack Daniels and I would just drink straight from the bottom. And I would just drink until I passed out or threw up or whatever. And it's continued for weeks until the point where I'm like, I'm done. Like I can't, I'm so miserable. I'm so unhappy. Everything about my life is imploding. And I don't know how to fix it. And I'll ask like family and friends and therapists but like, it's almost like you know what you want and you want it so bad, but you don't think it's going to happen. So you get into this huge, deep state of depression because you do want it so bad, but it feels so out of reach. Like I know what I want to do. I know what my life wants to be like, and I'm just messing it up and I'm not good enough. And you're clouded by all these negative thoughts about how it's not going to happen for you. And, oh, look at that happy couple. Oh, look at that millionaire with that awesome house. Oh, look at this and look at this. And you're finding all these reasons why it's not going to happen for you. You're like, oh, I might as well give up. And then you're going down that negative spiral. You're going down that broaden and build theory, negative tornado, and you're literally torturing yourself to the point where all that negative self-talk is driving you deeper and deeper and deeper, to the point where I grabbed one of my guns. I'm like, I'm done. Like, I can't do this. I'm not good enough. It's never going to happen. I ruin everything. And then you get into the self-talk where people would be better off without me. And then you get into suicide territory. Yeah, they would be better off without me. Like, I'm just no good and nobody loves me and nobody cares about me and nobody wants me. And like, you get down this negative self-talk spiral to the point where you're starting to accept that you could just end your life and people would be fine. Because at first you're like, people would be probably happy. I don't even know. Like they're probably happy. And then all of a sudden there's a confirmation bias that clicks and goes, you know what? They would be happy because of this and this and this. And I screw everything up and I'm a screw up and people don't like me and they hate me because this one thing happened and I saw it this way. And you're just like, you're literally committing spiritual suicide at that moment. And once that happens, then the physical suicide happens. And then that's how people take their life. And I was there. I was emotionally drained. I had nothing left. My cup was so freaking empty. I had nothing I literally had nothing to give. I was a puddle, I would just mask a smile. I was drunk half the time. I would drink to feel. Most people drink to feel numb because they don't want to feel because the hurt and pain and everything. I was the opposite. I was already numb and I wanted to drink to feel. And I would feel things deeper than most people. And then I showed up to work drunk and they were like, you're getting kicked out of the military. You're gone. And it was December 2008 and I put a gun in my mouth and I was going to end my life. People from the military checked on me because I hadn't reported in. I was just gone. And they found me with a bottle of Jack Daniels in one hand and a loaded 9mm in the other. And I was ready to end it. I was done. And I'll never understand right now in this moment, no matter how bad I think it gets, I cannot imagine wanting to hurt myself. Like, I look at back then, we're like, what the hell was I thinking? Like, I've lived an amazing life after that moment. Like, what would make a person get so far down because they're not equipped? They're not knowledgeable on resilience and gratitude and love and a whole host of other skill sets that they can use to battle the dark night of the soul when it comes. That's where we need to educate our audience, is what can we do?
Wow. I've heard some of your story before. I didn't, there's always something new every time I hear it, which is, I think, it's so crazy because I know people, I have friends who've taken their lives, and I always wonder, would there be a regret piece afterwards? You know, it always makes me think. And then you can't think like that because I think also in life things are meant to happen the way that they're happen, and like the way that they happen, and things are supposed to happen the way they do because, you know, whatever else in your life is supposed to follow in that specific way. So where do you begin with the education on it? We live in a time now where emotions are at the forefront. Social media content is playing on your heartstrings all day long. Yeah, we consume so much media in so many different forms. And so how does that education happen? And do you think that there's more of an acceptance towards conversations like this now compared to then? And also specifically for men, because I feel like men have a lot of like shame and like stigma around not being okay, you know?
Yeah, that's tough.
It was loaded.
That's really tough. There's always a pressure to perform. There's always a pressure to perform. Am I a good partner? Am I a good boss? Am I a good coworker? Am I a good mom? Am I a good dad? You know, like, we lead so many roles, and we wear so many hats, and we juggle so many balls that we feel like if we drop one, that we're a complete failure, which leads to depression, anxiety, stress, and because we're trying to be the friend that everybody wants, and we're trying to be the partner that everybody wants. We're trying to be the mom or the dad or the sister or the brother or the, you know, like, we're connected with everybody on so many different levels, and that if we fail as a sibling or as a child, like if I fail my mom, like, I feel bad. You know, if I fail in my business, if I fail as a parent, if I fail, like, all these different roles that we play, if we fail in one, we're like, oh my gosh, like, what's wrong with me? Like, I failed there. But as long as you fail forward, and as long as you recognize and are aware of those failures and where you have room to grow, then that's the key. You have to always be moving forward. You cannot just sit in that space like we talked about earlier. You cannot just look at the past and go, I remember that time where I messed up, because then you just go back and you just keep rereading the same old story over and over and over again. You have to grow. And John Maxwell has a great book called Failing Forward. It's like, get knocked down 7 times, get up 8. It's the same thing. But again, we need to educate the audience on the ways to do that. How do I pick myself up? When I was on the floor with the gun, I was emotionally incapable. I was so far. I tell people, like, I hit rock bottom so hard. I hit it twice because I bounced off the rock and hit rock bottom again. I fell so hard. But it was people around me. It was the support system. It was my military brothers that found me and helped me and never gave up on me. I already gave up on myself, but the people around me never gave up on me. And they took it upon themselves to get me the help that I needed when I didn't even want it. They made me. They never left me. They didn't give up on me. They believed in me. They did everything they could to save me. And here I am, 15 years later, 2008, 23, 15 years, right? Yeah.
Oh God, don't
15 years later. 15 years later. Here I am.
So what if someone doesn't have that type of support in their life? What if someone doesn't have that type of care in their life? What if someone doesn't have that person in their life? Then what? You know, we live in a time where the whole world would just shut down for like years. You know, people are lonely. Like, people don't like people are struggling. It's hard. And so, how do you begin to have a vulnerable conversation with someone that you love to tell them that you're struggling and that you need help when you can't do that? Or like maybe you feel like you can't do that right now.
That's hard. That's a hard place to be. You feel like you're alone. You feel like you can't talk to anybody. You don't know where to turn. And so you turn to self-harm. Like that's a dark place. What I will say to that again is learning gratitude, the power of positivity. What I coach people to do when I teach resilience is to have a spiritual reminder. If you are the kite and the wind is blowing you around, you're about to lose it. You're about to let go. Like you're about to give up. What tethers you? What grounds you? What is on the other end of the string of you that is holding you together? And some people feel like I'm not holding it together though. I cry all the time and I'm miserable and I'm depressed and I can't even get out of bed. Like I'm not holding it together. I'm like, well, that's okay.
That's me.
Like,
that's why I'm laughing. If you're watching this right now, that's why I'm laughing. I'm not laughing
it's
because
okay
I'm
to not
laughing
be
at the situation.
okay.
I'm just laughing because that's me. I know.
You're fine. You're doing fine. You're absolutely fine.
Thank you.
Acceptance is huge. Accepting, yes, this bad thing happened to me, because it's like the last step in the grief process. If we just skip the grief process, you know what's crazy? My mom will tell me sometimes, she goes, I haven't even grieved my father's death. I'm like, that's like 10 years ago. Like, find a time to go sit in a corner, cry, and like, what do you mean you haven't grieved? Like, it's been a decade. What are you talking about? You have to create the perfect time. The perfect time is never going to come up.
No, for sure. But you also need to have I think that people aren't always ready and equipped to deal with things. You know what I mean? And I think that's what makes it really difficult. Grief, it's easy to say all these things. It's easy to say, just pick yourself up and just do it. It's not easy for people to do that. You know what I mean? It's a really hard thing for people. I know people who've lost children who've never been able to pick themselves up again. And it's too bad, because it is too bad, because it's your life passes you by, and you do need to shift your mindset, and eventually you do need to pick up the pieces. But I get what you're saying, because it's you need to find the time, you need to do it, you need to be intentional about it, and you need to, purposely put energy into wherever you are right now to heal whatever thing that you're going through. But I think there's also space to let feelings flow and emotions flow. And maybe that's just me coming from a woman's point of view. I want to feel my feelings. I want to feel it. It makes me feel like I am honoring it for what it is, and it's coming up, and that it is what it is. And then I can let it go. You know what I mean? But I think the key piece is being able to let it go.
100%. Yep. 100%. There's nothing wrong with the feeling, but not moving on from it is not healthy. If I lost one of my kids, I would be absolutely devastated. I am not emotionally equipped to bury a child. I already know this. I would be dead inside if I lost one of my girls. But eventually I know I would have to move on. I have to live still, And so you ask yourself, what's great about this? Depends on the age of the child. We had a great life. One of my old bosses in the military lost his teenage son. He was 16, and him and I had a talk about this. I'm like, what's great about this? He's like, what? I'm like, seriously, man. What is great about this moment? Think about it. What's great about this? He's like, we had an amazing relationship. I'm like, you did. But I got him. But I got him thinking. He's like, I did have a really good relationship. We didn't argue and fight, and we weren't the typical teenage dad, fighting, whatever. He had a great relationship. I'm like, exactly. Yeah. What's great about this moment? You're remembering memories. You're remembering. So that is your tether. That is your grounding. That is your center. Those memories, the trip to here, the conversation we had there, his laugh, his smile, waking him up for school. Those are the things that you're going to carry with you. And that is what's going to keep you moving forward, because you have all these amazing memories. Acknowledge it, accept it, feel it, grieve it, honor it, like you said, because it's beautiful. Honor it. You're set, honor that. And your support system or the people around you should let you honor that. They should be come on, it'll be okay. It's not going to be okay. For that moment, it's not going to be okay. There's nothing about this that's okay. And it's not going to be okay until I say it's okay. But having people around you, honoring it with you, and walking through hell with you is a lot easier and a whole lot healthier than trying to just do it on your own, never going to therapy, never talking about it with somebody, never opening up. You're just bottling your feelings up. And then you're never going to be able to process the feelings because you're not talking to anybody. You're not getting it out. You're not releasing. You're not letting it go after you've honored it. It's just bottled up inside and you're just trying to put a smile on your face, but you're hurting. You have to process the hurt and pain. You have to accept and acknowledge that that thing happened and then take steps to not only honor it, but to let it go and say, it happened, life. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. I love it. Well, thank you very much for joining me on my podcast today. Can you tell my listener where to find you so they can connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is The Success Corps, like Marine Corps, CORPS. I'm all over Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. So you can look me up on my website. You can friend request me on social media. Tell me where you found me on the Happiness Happens podcast. And then I'll give a shout out to you and Simona for being an amazing host and absolutely honored to be here. And yeah, this is awesome. Great conversation.
Thanks. I have one more question for you. It's a question that I've asked every single guest on my podcast for the last 3 years. And I always get a different answer. I never know what the answer is going to be. I think I might have an idea what you're going to say. But what is one way that someone can create a little more happiness in their day every day starting today?
Count 3 blessings every single day. Gratitude. Count 3 blessings. Morning, noon, and night. All at night, all in the morning, whatever. Just have an attitude of gratitude. Count 3 blessings every single day. Or call 3 people and give them gratitude and make them smile.
Love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I really appreciate this conversation.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into this week's episode on the Happiness Happens podcast. If you like what you heard, share it on social media. Tag me on Instagram, tag both of us. Let us know you're listening. Let us know what you loved and share it with someone that you know needs to hear this message. Thank you. Thank you for being here today. And remember that happiness happens when you're least expecting it.